AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
Welcome to the AI in Action podcast series. I'm your host, Mark Kelly, Chief Customer Officer at Alldus International. Today's guest is Severin Messenbrink, and Severin is the technical lead at Everphone. Severin, welcome to the show today.
Hey, Mark, thank you so much for having me.
Before we jump straight into the podcast, would you mind giving me a little bit of an overview about yourself and your background, and then a little bit more about Everphone and the work that you do?
So I've been with the company since almost the very beginning. Company started in April 2016. I've been there since August 2016. So, since the very beginning, I've been responsible for the market intelligence department at the company. At the beginning, only in a very, very small circle, like 3 people when we started. But of course, this entire thing has grown quite a bit. So what the company offers actually is a device as a service. So it's catching on to this trend from from owning to using a product, right? So what we actually do in this is that we follow this no one-size-fits-all approach. So whatever devices we're offering to our customers, we basically design the lineup together with them based on their needs and expectations. For example, for a construction company, they probably don't need a high-end business phone. They need something which is rugged, which can survive the environment that those people work in. So what we basically do then is we manage the entire life cycle of a device. So we're not a normal leasing company where you just go and fetch a device, and after some time you give it back. We really handle the entire life cycle. So we source it, we prepare it for the customer via mobile device management, we repair it, we replace it, we have partners who do the refurbishment. And then, of course, the question is, what do we do when we get the devices back? And this is what we should talk about in a bit.
Could you tell me a little bit about device as a service and no one size fits all, and the kind of the life cycle management of all that for people that don't necessarily know much about this or weren't really aware of the services that you provide?
The thing basically is that usually in a big company, right, you have a IT department who basically takes care of the management of all the equipment that people have. So you have a huge overhead on this department if a phone breaks, if your laptop breaks or something. And this is basically what we said, okay, we offer this entire thing as a service. So whatever employee from one of our customers, they can simply get in touch with us instead of their own IT department and basically get the workload towards us. I would say the entire product is then basically built around making things convenient for our customers. So they can be a startup which just raises up, and they basically have this entire service all included for a monthly rent price.
So it's kind of like it takes away all the problems that people need to think about when they're actually going about this service without what you guys do.
Exactly. So it basically takes out the hassle, takes out the administration of things, and usually it also takes away quite some working hours, and usually also it's a tax benefit because you don't have to own a certain device. Since you're renting it, the taxation will be different.
So if we jump into a little bit about data and culture in a small company and how to build trust in data, could you maybe kind of share me a little bit about your background in that?
I mean, as I said, we started out, or like when I joined the company, it was a very small company indeed. So then the question is actually, okay, at this point, you think mostly about how will the company survive the next couple of months, right? And usually going into data-driven approaches would be something that you do a lot later in the entire process. So what you basically have to do to say to generate trust in data is basically you want to have a small series of wins. So let me give you a quick example for that one, right? Let's say we are seeing reoccurring events on the market, let's say Christmas, right? So we usually expect that sales numbers of anything really will spike during that time. And when we started analyzing the external market, we used those points in time to reassure that our system was actually working. So it's a good indicator in that sense.
Do you think that there's an opportunity within a small company to underappreciate the value that can come from that and some of the challenges that can come from business intelligence where there's this self-fulfilling prophecy?
Yes, definitely. Because if you look into the normal flow, you would say data is usually most in the BI context, right? So a company would go and analyze their own data. And then they would say, okay, hey, from this year to the next, we actually increased our sales by 15%. But what they usually don't do is take a real look at the outside world and said, hey, internally, we can say from just our own data that we increase that much, but what is our actual potential that we can reach? And this one you only get by looking at external sources and by evaluating what's really out there in the world, right? Because you can say, hey, compared to ourselves, we are doing really well, but we are still only doing 60% of our potential that we could have.
Yeah, which kind of ties us in nicely to, leveraging machine learning and how you can kind of maybe categorize offers and talk us through that.
Yeah, so basically what we do then, which was also one of the very first projects actually that we started at the company, was that we had a constant look at the market. So constantly we're looking at what are certain phones, because phones are the product which we're most interested in, of course. How do those prices decrease over time? And not only look at the general models, let's say an iPhone 8, but also look at the actual conditions. And this is really something which is unique in that sense. So we then used some machine learning to actually go through and say, hey, from all those thousands and thousands of offers that we see on the market each day, we have to find a way to categorize them, right? We have to find a way to basically do some basic NLP to find out about the condition of the actual device. And putting all this data together, basically start developing a trend. So this is also something which is normally underestimated in small companies. They say, okay, hey, if the data is not 100% accurate, we can't use it. And that was another challenge which we actually had, that to say, hey, if it's 80% right, and we know how to exclude outliers and all those things, if we have a trend, if we know if the value of a phone will increase or decrease, that's actually already enough. That's already what we want to achieve there. So it was really hard then actually to educate people inside of the company to see the value of used devices as kind of a stock market, right? It's not, I mean, you can generate a normal depreciation curve, which says, okay, on average, it should fall by 3%, 4% per month. But actually, people having this idea of it being a stock market was a real switch for most of our employees.
How has COVID changed the game for you guys, or has it?
The COVID, yeah, that's a topic that you will hear a lot about these days, of course. I mean, for us, COVID actually brought some really nice changes, because this entire thing of being able to work basically from anywhere by having your devices managed by an external party, meaning us, we don't have to explain our business model anymore these days, right? So people instantly know why this product will add value. Also, since the start of the crisis, there were a lot of employers who basically had to send their people home. and they didn't have any equipment which they could actually work with. And of course, they didn't want them to take their office computer, all the equipment that they had. They don't want them to take it home. So we could also supply a lot towards that.
When we look at the kind of the future, tell us a little bit about the app as a benefit, and tell us later on about maybe some of the cooperations that you're involved in. So I know you got some interesting one with Deutsche Telekom, for example.
Oh yeah, so one of the products we've recently started is basically applying this rent model from the phones also to apps. So what we started as a pilot is something called App as a Benefit, which is basically a subscription-based program for our customers. And they can say, hey, I want for the next month, I want to be able to use Babel. Or I want to be, since I can't go to the gym, I might want to have a mobile gym subscription where I can do some homework, some workout at home, right? So you can basically switch instead of buying one app for a year or two, you can basically switch on a monthly basis. So yeah, that's the app as a benefit, which we're starting right now, and we got really good feedback so far about that. Regarding the cooperation and also the Series B, which we just went through, I mean, one of the main players which actually came on here was Deutsche Telekom, which doesn't only bring money to the table. I mean, of course they do, but they also bring many, many years of industry experience. So, and so far, like, it has been a magnificent start with them cooperating on things. And one of the partners we recently got in is actually Samsung. So Samsung is offering our solution to their business customers now. So, and I think all those points basically prove the trust in the product that we built. So that's really, really great to see.
You know, it's fantastic to see. And I think what's really good is that, you know, people are getting convenience, they're getting choice. You know, you're engaging now with very trusted brands, and it's been you've kind of reimagined what was possible within the world of COVID as well, which is great to see as well. So it's been a real pleasure speaking with yourself today. You've been listening to the AI in Action podcast series, and I've been speaking to Severin Messenbrink, Everphone technical lead at the company, and he's been telling us the world of what's happening at Everphone. Severin, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.